Hello students, welcome to our afternoon read aloud. We've been learning about Martin Luther King Jr. or MLK Jr. and so far we have read a couple of biographies. Remember, a biography is a book about someone's life, and we read this biography about him. We also read this biography and another biography about him, right? And then last time we started learning more about Rosa Parks. She is another hero or heroine, because she's female, of the civil rights movement. And we read this biography about her. Today I'm going to read a different kind of book to you about her. This book is called I Am Rosa Parks, and it says by Rosa Parks and Jim Haskins. So when you look at the title and it says I Am Rosa Parks, who's telling the story? I am Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks herself, right? So that's a little different than a regular biography. That is an autobiography. Autobiography. That, like a biography, is a book about someone's life that is written by that person. So she's telling her story, the story of her life herself, with a little help. Another thing I want you to notice about this is it's written in the style of a picture book, right? Just like this picture book biography about MLK. So sometimes you can have information books, you can learn so much from them. They can be in a picture book style, and then sometimes they are like this with more, with more nonfiction text features like charts and maps and labels and arrows, right? Anyway, today let's start to enjoy I Am Rosa Parks, and there she is on the cover, and already I can see a picture of the bus, right? And she was the leader of the Montgomery bus boycott. I'd like to read the blurb on the back, but much of it is hidden by the sticker. I think it was about how she even knew about trying to fight for fairness before all of the bus boycott. I Am Rosa Parks. There she is, even young, with some school books. Oh, contents. I get arrested. How I grew up. We stay off the buses since the boycott. Oh, and they even made the table of contents like a sign. Oh, and there she is at a water fountain that says colored. That's the word that was used to refer to African Americans or black people in the old days. Here we go. I get arrested. Many years ago, black people in the South could not go to the same schools as white people. We could not eat in white restaurants. We could not even drink from the same water fountains. We had to stay apart from white people everywhere we went. This was called segregation. Segregation was the law in the South. If we broke the law, we could be arrested or hurt or even killed. Colored whites only. When we rode a bus, we could only sit in the back seats. The front seats were just for white people. If all the front seats were filled with white people, we black people had to give up our seats to the next white people who got on the bus. That's the way we rode the buses in the South when I was younger. I rode the buses and obeyed the laws that kept me apart from white people. But I did not think they were right. One day when I was riding on a bus, I was sitting in one of the seats in the back section for black people. The bus started to get crowded. The front seats filled up with white people. One white man was standing up. The bus driver looked back at us black people sitting down. The driver said, "Let me have those seats." He wanted us to get up and give our seats to white people. But I was tired of doing that. I stayed in my seat. The bus driver said to me, "I'm going to have you arrested." "You may do that," I said, and I stayed in my seat. 2 policemen came. One asked me, "Why didn't you stand up?" I asked him, "Why do you push us black people around?" Wow. She's brave. The policeman took me to jail. They took my picture. They put my fingers on a pad of ink and rolled my fingers onto white cards. That way they had my fingerprints. Then they put me in a jail cell. I did not have to spend the night in jail. My husband came to get me. A friend paid my bail money. That meant I could go free for now. The police told me to come to court in 3 days. I went to court. The judge said I was guilty of breaking the law. I was fined $10 plus $4 in court costs. I never paid it. I did not feel I had broken the law. I thought black people should not have to give up their seats on the bus to white people. I thought the law should treat black people and white people just the same way. I always wanted rules to be fair, even when I was small. Oh, next chapter, how I grew up. Wow, well, there is a map here of the state of Alabama with Birmingham, Montgomery, and Pine Level marked. There's a river, and this must be maybe her family. I was born on February 4th, 1913. I grew up in a place called Pine Level, Alabama. I was named Rosa Louise McCauley after my grandma, Rose. My little brother was named Sylvester after my grandpa. My mother's name was Leona. She was a school teacher. My father was a builder of houses. His name was James. We lived on a farm with my grandma and grandpa. They owned their own land and grew vegetables and raised chickens on it. I liked to go fishing with grandma and grandpa. They could not see very well, so I would put the worm on the hook for them. Pine Level was too small to have buses or public water fountains or even a library, but there was segregation just the same. Sylvester and I went to a school for black children. It only had one room. White children went to a bigger school. There was a school bus for the white children. There was no school bus for us. Sometimes when we walked to school, the bus would go by, carrying the white children. They would laugh at us and throw trash out the window. There was no way to stop them. Wow, that's very sad. One day, a white boy named Franklin tried to hit me. I picked up a brick and I dared him to hit me. He went away. My grandma was angry. She told me not to talk back to white folks. I thought I was right to talk back. When I grew up, I married a man named Raymond Parks. The year was 1932. He was a barber. He lived in the city of Montgomery, Alabama. I was proud of my husband because he worked to help black people. He helped get lawyers for people who had been arrested. I began to work to help black people too. I wrote down their stories when they were hurt by whites. I asked young black people to try to use the white library. It was very hard work. It was also very sad work because nothing we did really helped make our lives better. Then came that day on the bus when I would not give up my seat to a white person. I was tired of black people being pushed around. Some people think I kept my seat because I'd had a hard day, but that is not true. I was just tired of giving in. Okay, next chapter, we stay off the buses. This must be about the boycott. Many black people heard that I'd been arrested. They were very angry. They thought it was time to fight for new laws. A woman named Joanne Robinson said we should not ride the buses if we had to give up our seats to white people. She passed out leaflets asking all black people in the city of Montgomery to stay off the buses for one day. This was called a boycott. It says, "Unite, don't ride the bus, Monday, December 5th. The day of the boycott came, the buses were almost empty. Very few black people were on them. A man named E.D. Nixon called a big meeting of black people. The meeting was held in a church. A young minister named Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. told all the black people to keep off the buses. Everyone at the meeting cheered and the boycott went on. We walked to work or took taxis. We got rides from our friends, but we did not ride the buses. Christmas passed. It was very cold, but we did not ride the buses. White people were very angry. They wanted us to ride the buses again. Some black people even lost their jobs because they would not ride the buses. Some black people were arrested. Some were beaten up. I got telephone calls from people who would not give their names. They said they wanted to hurt me. Spring came. Now it was nice weather for walking. All the black churches had station wagons to drive the people who could not walk. Because not everybody can walk, right? Some people, they need a ride somehow, right? But they didn't want to ride the buses. They wanted to keep up the boycott. Summer came. The buses had stopped running. There were not enough riders without the black people. So that's bad for the bus company, right? Mr. Nixon and Dr. King got lawyers to take our case to court. They took our case all the way to the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. The Supreme Court said that the segregation laws were wrong. Black people should not have to give up their bus seats to white people. The Supreme Court is the highest court in the land where the judges decide the most serious things. And it's here in Washington, D.C., right? Our boycott worked, and we had won. We went back to the buses at last. We did not have to give up our seats anymore. We had stayed off the buses for a whole year. Since the boycott. Next chapter. Many white people were angry that we had won. My brother was worried about our safety. My husband and I left Montgomery to find work and be near my brother. We moved up north to Detroit, Michigan, and my mother moved with us. Back in the South, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. decided to fight against segregation in other ways. He led black people in the fight to vote and to eat in restaurants, just as white people did. He was fighting for their rights. This fight was called the Civil Rights Movement. Some white people joined the fight. Most went down south from the north, but some white people in the South joined the Civil Rights Movement too. I helped out by making speeches. I told about being arrested. I went down south for some of the big marches for black people's rights. The Civil Rights Movement won many rights for black people. New laws for equal rights were passed, and the old segregation laws were over. Today, I still make many speeches, and I receive many awards. Some people say I started the whole civil rights movement because I would not give up my seat on the bus. I know that many people started the civil rights movement, and many people worked very hard to win the rights that black people have today, but I am glad that I did my part. There is still much work to be done. The laws that kept black and white people apart have been changed, but there are still many people who have not changed in their hearts. I hope that children today will grow up without hate. I hope they will learn to respect one another, no matter what color they are. Wow. And that, for me, makes a connection to the I Have a Dream speech, right? Where Martin Luther King said that I hope that my children will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character, right? By how they are and their behavior. So that was an autobiography, remember, because she wrote it herself with some help, an autobiography of Rosa Parks. And I want to do something, but what we're going to do is connected to the book, but we're actually just going to quickly review some of the special words we've been learning. So remember, boycott is to refuse to use or buy something as a form of protest, and they boycotted the bus, right? Racist, to be against someone or unfair to them because of their race. People or laws can be racist. So people can be racist. And of course, in the South, the laws were racist and were finally changed. Segregate, to separate groups of people by race. Civil rights, things we can do or have according to the law. Like, for your parents, like vote, be treated equally. And for children, go to public school, go to equal schools. So those are the things we've been studying. And I want you to start to try hard to remember these special words. And we'll continue learning more about MLK and the Civil Rights Movement. I hope you have a nice afternoon. Don't forget to keep washing your hands, cover your coughs and sneezes, do some reading, do some writing, help your family around the house, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.